Hey, so we're talking about the angelic awareness, the 11 angelic portals. And so I thought I'd give a little bit of information about each of the portals. We'll send it out in the flyer tonight as well. But, you know, as we go through and we think about these things, it's not just our ability to access angels, but also for the angelic energy to come through like a portal and come into our lives or into the physical realm. Like we anchor it into our our family, our business, our spiritual practice, into our daily lives. We're anchoring it into our projects, whatever it might be, whatever our hands are touching, basically like becoming a kind of a vessel, you could say, of this angelic energy coming through. So let's talk about some of the portals. One is infinite possibilities. A lot of times we put something in motion and there's a kind of gravity that's there. And, that gravity happens when we think of something repetitively or there's a strong emotion, and that mixes with the earth, and then gravity sets in. And whether it's good or bad, it's going to begin to go through the manifestation process. So if we've done something where we maybe started a project and we changed our mind, or even worse, we've had like a traumatic event, or we had something that was very upsetting, we had strong emotions and a lot of repetitive thoughts, we're still putting that into the manifestation cycle to eventually, come into form. And so then there's the aspect of what about when we want to bring things into our lives, like good things, like we want to bring in some idea or even just the manifestation of our higher self or our soul into everyday life, right? How do we make this happen? And again, this is tied to infinite possibilities, is we can put something like that into motion. And the ability to cut off things that are patterns in our lives. We try to do it with our mind, and we try to do it with our behavior, and all these kinds of approaches to breaking patterns in our life. But here we're bringing in the angelic energy, and remember, it doesn't force a shift, but it holds a like a pattern for us to step into, that we then kind of ride the light into bringing it into form. And so it's a way to cut loose of something or bring something in that is beyond our intellectual mind's ability to bring something in. Another aspect is intelligence. Now, we think of intelligence as maybe potentially an accumulation of information, book study, we got a degree or something from a school. But intelligence is really the ability to process things on an intuitive level, to access intelligence that's not just inside of us, but there's intelligences that are always surrounding us, right? They're just up in the ethers. You could say an angel is a kind of intelligence, right? You could say praying to God, God is a kind of intelligence. And intelligence is the ability to access these things outside of ourselves and then bring them into our mind, bring them into our body so we can process that information or process that kind of wisdom that's just lingering there in the ethers, right? Then there's inner guidance, the ability to have like that inner compass within us to be able to guide us when we are maybe going down a wrong path or interacting with a person we shouldn't. On paper, they might look fine, but it's like, I got this sense about something, and maybe I shouldn't do this, right? Or it could even just be a direction in your life. Sometimes a decision at a particular time can really dictate if you go one direction in life or another direction in life, right? So, this idea of inner guidance is actually one of the angelic portals. Another one is boundaries. This is something that people talk about. They talk about like how to establish it. They try to do it with their intellectual mind, but it's almost like just a way of being. As much as you try to make it happen, if you're not in that place, if you're not in that state, boundaries really aren't something that is of the mind. You really are not going to be able to just forge them like that. And so it helps to reduce negative boundaries or poor boundaries, and it helps to strengthen good boundaries in a way that is very sophisticated and soft, and not where we have to be rigid and hard with people and be on the defensive, right? Then there's the idea of clear perception, the portal of clear perception. And really, this ties into a lot of what we've been talking about with vagal tone and the dysregulation of the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight flight. Because when we have a dysregulated nervous system, we also have a distorted sense of perception, because that perception is based on fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? So as we go through and we calm down our nervous system, our perception improves a little bit. But as we cultivate this particular angelic portal, it helps to clear our perception. And also, if there's blockages in us that are affecting our perception, it helps to reduce this so that we have clear perception, which is the beginning of generating true ideas, right? There's another aspect associated with social engagement. We don't think of vagal tone as having an aspect about social engagement, but even the idea of the dysregulation of the nervous system and then the improvement of vagal tone, there's an aspect of your nervous system that is about how we engage and how we interact socially. And there is actually an angelic portal that's tied directly to this aspect. So, you know how sometimes some people are just, they're very good socially, and then some of us aren't. Like we just don't have that skill set. It's actually tied to this aspect, this portal. And it's not something you have to learn. It's just a portal you have to open up and let it start flowing, right? Then there's the portal of manifestation, of being able to anchor that idea and bring it into materialization. You could say this is an even further step down version, a more concretizing version of infinite possibilities. Then there is luminous self-worth. And, we we spend so much time kind of unwinding the things from the past, and all these past experiences really start to accumulate and impact our self-image and our self-worth. And it is an aspect that's in our nervous system, and it's an aspect that it's in our energy body. And by opening up and working this portal, it begins to shift both the nervous system and how we see ourselves, our self-image, and how we value ourselves. So by opening this, it starts to shift this self-image and this idea of self-worth. And then a deeper level of mind-body connection. How we do processes where we listen to the body, and we help the mind and the brain hear the information coming from the body. And in doing so, we start to break these negative loops in the body that cause us, emotional and mental issues and poor health in our physical body. By increasing this portal, that connection, that communication between the mind and the body is enhanced, and we start to have a deeper level of mind body connection. And then there is a portal totally associated with completing and regulating neural like loops. Like part of what it does is it just starts to have a cascading effect of reducing the neural loops that got stuck in the defensive mode and the protective mode starts to help shift them into completion, and then helps the body go back into deeper levels of regulation. And then last is the portal of emotional progression. And emotional progression is that ability to take lower emotions. We, of course, we try to not generate them or flush them out, but at some point, those emotions can eventually, if we have these pathways opened, turned into like higher emotions. And then even those higher emotions start to become a greater way of accessing love, love with other people, deeper connections, but also love of the self, and eventually a type of compassion that we have for other people through the development of the astral body. Right. So it might start off with just being able to love other people on a deeper level, and then to love ourselves on an even deeper level. But then the love keeps expanding to where we really begin to experience divine love and the development of the astral body, you know, going beyond the form. So hopefully you can join us. Take care.